When making an 18th century petticoat, the pattern usually consists of two rectangles, the length of each being the length of the desired petticoat, and the width being the same as that of the fabric used. However, I used the same striped linen that had lined my brown printed cotton jacket, and this linen had large chunks missing where I had cut out the lining, so my petticoat required some piecing to make the requisite rectangular shape. I used scraps of fabric to fill out the rectangle, cutting each scrap to fit where I wanted it to fit. I tried to line up the stripes of the piecing with the stripes of the fabric, but this was not always successful. The edges of each piece were folded under and pinned in place, and each piece was stitched down with small running stitches, which are visible from the front of the garment. I think that the visible piecing gives this petticoat a worn appearance, suitable to a pirate costume, so I'm not complaining. Once the rectangles that made up the petticoat were actually rectangles, my next step was to stitch the side seams. With the fabric layered right sides together, the rectangles were pinned together at the sides, up to about 10 inches from the top. This seam was stitched with running stitches, with a few extra stitches for strength, at what will become the base of the pocket slits. Speaking of pocket slits, my next step was finishing those. After the side seams had been stitched, they were pressed open. Because my fabric had a sturdy selvage, there was no need for me to finish the pocket slits beyond securing the selvage down with running stitches. I did do a few overlapping stitches at the base of the pocket slit to prevent it from tearing at that point, but other than that, this was a fairly straightforward process. My next step was tackling the hem. I knew that I wanted this petticoat to have a hem bound in black tape, both because I thought it would be striking and because I have more black cotton tape than I know what to do with. Yes, the tape is too narrow to bind face masks by machine. To bind the hem, I pinned the tape to the wrong side of the petticoat, then I ran running stitches in black thread along the top edge of the tape. The effect of this was that, after trimming away a little bit of excess linen, I was able to fold the cotton tape over to the front of the petticoat, iron it in place, and then secure it with running stitches, encasing the hem while adding a decorative border. Once the hem was completed, my last step was to pleat the top of the petticoat to a waist tie. First, I pleated the top of each panel. The back panel, which is what I pleated in this clip, was knife pleated towards the center with an inverted pleat at the very center, while the front panel was knife pleated towards the pocket slits. Each panel was pleated to half my waist measurement, plus a few inches, and the pleats were pinned roughly in place and then neatened and repinned off camera. The last step was attaching the waist ties. I did this using a similar technique as when I've bound the hem. First, I pinned the cotton tape to the interior of the petticoat along the top edge. Then, I secured the tape in place along the edge currently closest to the hem using spaced back stitches in black thread. Once the waist tie was secured with spaced back stitches, I turned it towards the exterior of the petticoat and whip-stitched it in place. This petticoat is worn kind of like an apron, with the ties holding the back panel tying at the front of my waist and the ties that hold up the front panel tying around at the back of my waist. This allows for adjustability when the petticoat is worn.